welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into a question you might not expect. What can K-12 school and district administrators, like yourselves, learn from the Black Panther Party's community programs?
Yeah, it might seem a little surprising.
Yeah.
But there's this fascinating connection to Tara Yoso's model of community cultural wealth
That's right.
that we'll unpack today.
I've got to admit, when I first heard this topic, my mind went straight to, the Black Panther Party's kind of like militant image.
Right.
But then I started reading about the Black Panther Party Alumni Legacy Network.
Yeah.
The BPPALN.
Yeah, the BPPLN is doing some incredible work.
Yeah.
They're made up of original Black Panther Party members and supporters.
Right.
And they're really focused on highlighting that legacy of community service.
Okay, so more than just protests and confrontations.
Oh, way more.
Okay.
The BPPALN actually documents over 65 social service programs.
Wow.
Created by the Black Panther Party.
That's a lot.
And these weren't small scale either. They were deeply embedded in the communities they served.
65 programs.
Yeah.
What were some of the needs
Wow.
these programs were designed to address?
Well, think about the historical context, right?
Yeah.
Black communities were facing, systemic oppression and neglect.
Yeah.
And the Black Panther Party's programs were a direct response to that reality,
Mm-hmm.
So they created initiatives like financial literacy training,
Okay.
neighborhood safety patrols,
Mm-hmm.
and youth development programs, things like that.
I was reading through the BPPALN website.
Yeah?
And I was really struck by the sheer variety of programs.
Oh, yeah.
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 They even had programs focused on holistic medicine and historical preservation.
Right.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But what I found really compelling was how these programs were rooted in the Black Panther Party's 10-point platform and program.
Mm-hmm.
A document outlining their goals for community empowerment.
That's a crucial point.
Yeah.
These programs weren't just these random acts of charity.
Right.
They were part of a larger vision
Right.
for social change.
A movement.
A vision rooted in self-determination and community upliftment.
Yeah. And that brings us to Tara Yoso
Yes.
and her work on community cultural wealth.
Yoso's work is so important
Yeah.
because it challenges traditional ideas about what constitutes valuable knowledge and skills.
Yeah.
She argues that communities of color possess unique assets, forms of capital,
Right.
that are often overlooked or undervalued
Mm-hmm.
by mainstream institutions like schools.
So instead of focusing on what communities lack,
Yeah,
Yoso flips the script
right.
and highlights the strengths they already possess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She calls these strengths community cultural wealth.
Right.
And this is where we start to see the connection to the Black Panther Party's programs.
Okay, so if we look at those programs through the lens of Yoso's framework,
Yeah.
could we say they're examples of community cultural wealth in action?
I'd say absolutely.
Yeah.
Yoso outlines 6 forms of capital that make up community cultural wealth: aspirational, linguistic, familial, social, navigational, and resistant.
Okay.
And we can see elements of each of these in the Black Panther Party's work.
Yeah, let's unpack those 6 capitals.
All right.
First up, aspirational capital.
Yeah.
What exactly does that mean?
So Yoso defines aspirational capital as the ability to maintain hopes and dreams for the future,
Mm-hmm.
even in the face of significant barriers.
Right.
And remember, the Black Panther Party was born in a time of, intense racial discrimination and social upheaval.
Right.
Yeah.
So in a context where it would be easy to lose hope,
Yeah.
they were actively working to cultivate a sense of possibility within their communities.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Their programs were infused with this belief in a better future,
Mhm.
a future where Black people could thrive
Yeah.
and overcome, the systemic obstacles they faced. Right. We see this in their commitment to education,
Right.
their focus on youth development, and their unwavering belief in the power of collective action.
So they weren't just trying to help people survive.
Right.
They were trying to help them envision and create a different reality
Exactly.
for themselves and future generations.
And that's a powerful form of capital.
Yeah.
That belief in the possibility of change,
Mm-hmm.
that refusal to be defined by the limitations imposed by an unjust system.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this connects to the work of school administrators.
Right.
If we're talking about creating learning environments where all students can thrive,
Yeah.
nurturing that sense of hope and possibility seems absolutely essential.
It's foundational,
Yeah.
because If students don't believe in their own potential,
Right.
if they don't see a pathway to a brighter future,
Right.
how can we expect them to fully engage in the learning process?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It's about fostering that intrinsic motivation, that drive to learn and grow that comes from believing in oneself and one's ability to shape the future.
Right. And the Black Panther Party understood this deeply.
Yeah.
They didn't just provide services.
Right.
They nurtured a mindset,
Right.
a spirit of resilience and determination
Yeah.
that fueled their community's efforts to overcome oppression.
So it's about more than just academic achievement.
Right.
It's about empowering students to see themselves as agents of change,
Exactly.
capable of making a difference in their own lives and in the world around them.
That's a powerful insight.
Yeah.
And it leads us perfectly to our next capital, linguistic capital.
Okay, this one seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
But I know Yoso goes beyond just the ability to speak multiple languages.
You're right.
Okay.
While multilingualism is a valuable asset,
Yeah.
Yoso argues that linguistic capital encompasses all the intellectual and social skills gained through diverse communication experiences.
So it's about being able to navigate different communication styles.
Right.
Different cultural contexts, different ways of using language to connect, persuade, and inform.
And here's where the Black Panther Party really shines.
Yeah.
Think about the power of their rhetoric.
Mm-hmm.
Their ability to articulate a vision of social justice that resonated deeply
Oh, yeah.
with their communities.
They were masters of communication.
Yes.
You know, their speeches, their writings, even their visual imagery,
Yes.
all contributed to a powerful and compelling narrative that mobilized people and inspired action.
Exactly. They understood the power of language to shape perceptions,
Right.
to challenge dominant narratives, and to create a sense of shared identity and purpose.
And they weren't afraid to challenge the language of power,
Right.
to expose the ways in which language was used to perpetuate injustice and inequality.
And let's not forget the importance of storytelling.
Okay.
The Black Panther Party understood the role of oral tradition
Right.
in transmitting cultural knowledge and values.
So for them, language wasn't just about conveying information.
Right.
It was a tool for empowerment, for resistance, for building community, and for shaping a new vision for the future.
It was a fundamental part of their movement.
Yeah.
It's an aspect of their legacy
Right.
that holds valuable lessons for educators today.
Okay. I'm seeing how this connects.
Yeah.
Thinking about our roles as school administrators.
Right.
You know, we need to create spaces where students' linguistic capital is valued and nurtured.
Absolutely. Schools need to be places where students can explore their own voices, where they can learn to communicate effectively across different contexts,
Right.
and where they can use language as a tool for critical thinking, creativity, and social change.
So it's about moving beyond standardized tests and rote memorization
Yeah,
and embracing a more holistic understanding of language development.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's about creating learning environments where students can develop the full range of their linguistic skills and use those skills to navigate the complexities of the world around them.
That's a powerful idea.
Yeah.
And it makes me think about Yoso's next form of capital, familial capital.
This is one that's often misunderstood,
Okay.
but it's so important.
Yeah.
Yoso emphasizes that familial capital is not just about the nuclear family structure.
So it's broader than just parents and siblings.
Much broader.
Okay.
She's talking about the cultural knowledge, values,
Yeah.
and practices nurtured among extended kinship networks.
Okay.
It's about the networks of care and support that exist within communities,
Yeah.
particularly communities of color.
So how did the Black Panther Party tap into this concept of familial capital?
Well, they recognize the importance of strong family and community ties,
Right.
and their programs were often designed to strengthen those bonds.
So it wasn't just about providing direct services. It
Really?
was about fostering a sense of collective responsibility, a belief that everyone had a role to play in supporting the well-being of the community.
They created spaces where people could connect, where they could share resources and support each other,
Yeah.
and where they could build a sense of belonging and solidarity.
And this wasn't just about warm, fuzzy feelings.
Right.
You know, this sense of interconnectedness,
Yeah.
this web of relationships
Right.
provided a foundation of strength and resilience,
Absolutely.
especially in the face of adversity.
And it's something that we often overlook in education.
Right.
You know, we tend to focus on the individual student.
Right.
the individual family,
Right.
without recognizing the power of those broader kinship networks.
Yeah, I think this highlights a real opportunity
Yeah.
for K-12 administrators.
Right.
If we can tap into that familial capital, if we can create schools that feel like extensions of those kinship networks,
Right.
we can create a much more supportive and nurturing environment for our students.
That's a powerful insight.
Yeah.
It's about moving away from that model of the school as a separate entity,
Right.
and instead seeing it as embedded within the fabric of the community.
So it's about building relationships, fostering trust, and recognizing the valuable knowledge and resources that families and communities bring to the table.
And it's about creating a sense of shared responsibility for the success of our students.
Yes.
We're all in this together,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to leverage the collective strength of our communities to create the best possible learning environments for our children.
Wow. This conversation has really broadened my perspective on what's possible in education.
Yeah.
But we've covered a lot of ground in this section. We'll be back in a moment to continue exploring Yoso's community cultural wealth model and how it connects to the Black Panther Party's legacy of community service.
All right, stay with us. Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about Yoso's concept of familial capital and how the Black Panther Party, really understood the importance of those strong family and community ties.
Yeah, it's amazing to see how these forms of community cultural wealth
Right.
were woven into the fabric of their programs.
Let's move on to another form of capital that was essential to their work, social capital.
Okay, this one seems pretty intuitive,
It's about
networks, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Social capital refers to the networks of people and community resources that provide support.
And we see this very clearly in the Black Panther Party's work.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
They understood the power of collective action,
Right.
of bringing people together to achieve common goals.
Right.
Think about their free breakfast programs,
Right.
their health clinics, their schools.
Mm-hmm.
These weren't just isolated services. They
Yeah.
were points of connection,
Yeah.
spaces where people could build relationships, share resources, and support each other.
So it wasn't just about meeting immediate needs.
Right.
It was about strengthening the fabric of the community.
Precisely. They fostered a sense of solidarity, a belief that everyone had a role to play
Yeah.
in the collective well-being of the community.
That's a really powerful concept.
Yeah.
And thinking about this, as a K-12 administrator, I can see how we can apply this to our schools.
School leaders have a unique opportunity to cultivate social capital within their schools and communities
How so?
by creating spaces for connection, by facilitating partnerships between families, community organizations, and the school itself.
So it's about more than just parent-teacher nights or school fundraisers.
Right.
It's about building a web of relationships that support students both inside and outside the classroom.
Think about it this way.
Yeah.
When a child feels connected to their school community,
Mm-hmm.
when they know they have a network of adults
Right.
who care about them and want to see them succeed,
Yeah.
their chances of success, skyrocket.
It's huge.
Yeah.
I'm also realizing that building social capital can be a powerful way to address some of the systemic inequities
Absolutely.
that our students face.
That's a key insight.
Yeah.
Strong social networks can provide access to resources, opportunities, and support
Yeah.
that might not otherwise be available.
So it's about leveling the playing field,
Exactly.
about ensuring that all students, regardless of their background, have the support they need to thrive.
It's about recognizing that we're all interconnected
Mm-hmm.
and that the success of our communities
Right.
depends on the success of all its members.
That's a powerful message, and it leads perfectly into our next form of capital, navigational capital.
Navigational capital is about the skills and knowledge needed to navigate complex systems, institutions, and social structures.
And for many of our students, especially those from marginalized communities, these systems can feel incredibly daunting,
Right.
even hostile at times.
That's why this form of capital is so crucial.
Yeah.
It's about empowering students with the tools they need to advocate for themselves,
Right.
to access resources, and to overcome the systemic barriers they may encounter.
So it's not just about knowing the rules of the game.
Right.
It's about being able to navigate the game strategically,
Exactly.
to understand the unwritten rules,
Yeah.
and to find ways to work within and even challenge those systems.
And again, the Black Panther Party provides a fantastic example of this. They
Right.
were masters at navigating complex systems,
Mm-hmm.
often using their knowledge and skills to challenge those very systems and advocate for change.
For example, their free health clinics program
Right.
wasn't just about providing medical care.
Mm-hmm.
It was about challenging the inequities in the healthcare system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They understood that healthcare was a right,
Right.
not a privilege.
Mm-hmm.
And they were determined to make that right a reality for their community.
And they didn't just wait for permission or approval.
Right.
They took action. They built their own institutions.
Yeah.
And they demanded change.
And that's a lesson that's so relevant for educators today.
Right.
We need to empower our students to be advocates for themselves,
Mm-hmm.
to navigate those complex systems,
Right.
and to demand the resources and support they deserve.
So it's not just about teaching them how to fill out a college application or apply for financial aid.
Right.
It's about teaching them how to navigate the bureaucracy,
Yeah.
how to challenge the status quo,
Mm,
and how to use their voices to create change.
precisely.
Yeah.
It's about preparing them to be active,
Mm.
engaged citizens
Right.
who can make a difference in the world around them.
I love how Yoso's concept of navigational capital flips the script on what we typically think of as academic success.
Right. It's not just about grades and test scores.
Right.
It's about equipping students with the skills they need
Mm-hmm.
to navigate the real world.
Real world.
A world that's often complex,
Right.
confusing, and even unjust.
And it's about empowering them to challenge those injustices,
Mm-hmm.
to use their voices
Mm.
to create a more just and equitable society.
And speaking of challenging injustices,
Right.
that brings us to our final form of capital-resistant capital.
Okay, this one is especially intriguing.
Yeah.
How does resistance translate into a form of capital?
So Yoso argues that resistant capital is about the knowledge and skills
Mm-hmm.
fostered through acts of resistance,
Okay.
through the challenges to the status quo
Right.
that often arise from marginalized communities.
So it's about those moments when individuals and communities push back against oppression, when they refuse to accept the limitations imposed upon them.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it's about recognizing that those acts of resistance,
Mm-hmm.
those challenges to dominant narratives and power structures,
Right.
are valuable forms of knowledge and experience.
So instead of seeing resistance as a problem to be solved,
Right.
we should be recognizing it as a source of strength and resilience.
It's about recognizing the agency and creativity that often emerge from those struggles.
Right.
The innovative solutions and strategies
Yeah.
that people develop to overcome obstacles.
And I can definitely see how the Black Panther Party embodies this concept of resistant capital.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, their entire movement was built on a foundation of resistance,
Right.
of challenging systemic racism and oppression.
Their programs, while providing essential services,
Yeah.
were also about empowering people to stand up for their rights,
Mm-hmm.
to demand justice,
Mhm.
and to create a more equitable society.
They weren't afraid to be disruptive,
Mm.
to challenge the status quo,
Right.
and to demand change.
And they understood that resistance could take many forms,
Yes.
from peaceful protests and community organizing to more confrontational tactics when necessary.
They were strategic.
Mm-hmm.
They were creative.
Right.
And they were unwavering in their commitment to fighting for justice.
So how can K-12 administrators apply this concept of resistant capital in their schools?
It's about creating spaces where students can safely question the status quo,
Mm-hmm.
where they can learn about social justice issues,
Right.
and where they can develop the skills and confidence to challenge injustice.
So it's about fostering critical thinking skills,
Uh-huh.
encouraging students to think for themselves,
Mhm.
and empowering them to be agents of change.
It's about recognizing that dissent and disagreement are not threats,
Right.
but opportunities for growth and learning.
And it's about creating a school culture
Yeah.
that values student voice, student activism, and student leadership.
We need to move away from that model of the compliant student,
Right.
the student who blindly follows the rules.
And embrace a model that encourages students to think critically,
Yes.
to challenge assumptions,
Mm,
and to use their voices
Mm.
to create a more just and equitable world.
It's about recognizing the power of resistance
Yeah.
and harnessing that power to create positive change.
This has been an incredibly insightful exploration of Yoso's community cultural wealth model and how it manifests in the Black Panther Party's legacy of community service.
It's amazing to see how these, seemingly disparate concepts
Right.
can come together to offer such a powerful framework for reimagining education.
We've covered a lot of ground today, but I feel like we've only scratched the surface.
There's so much more to unpack here.
Right.
So many implications for school leaders who are committed to creating more inclusive, equitable, and empowering learning environments.
We'll be back in just a moment to explore some specific strategies that K-12 administrators can use to apply these ideas in their schools.
All right.
Stay with us for the final part of our deep dive into community cultural wealth and the Black Panther Party's inspiring legacy. Welcome back to the deep dive.
Yeah.
We've been kind of unpacking, Tar Yoso's community cultural wealth model
Yes.
and how it shows up in the Black Panther Party's work.
Yeah. It's been really inspiring to see how those, 6 forms of capital, aspirational, linguistic, familial, social, navigational, and resistant, how they were woven into the very fabric of the party's programs.
Right.
Yeah.
For you as K-12 administrators, I think the big question is
Yeah.
how can we apply these insights
Right.
in our own schools?
Yeah, it really starts with a shift in perspective.
Okay.
Instead of seeing students through this deficit lens, what they lack, we need to recognize, the wealth of assets they bring to the table.
So much of traditional education
Wow.
focuses on, fixing what's supposedly wrong with students.
Yeah.
This feels like a complete 180 from that.
Exactly. Imagine a school that mirrors the Black Panther Party's approach, a place that nurtures hope,
Mm-hmm.
even in the face of challenges,
Right.
values diverse ways of communicating,
Right.
sees families as partners,
Mm-hmm.
and builds that network of support within the community.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Yeah.
But let's get specific.
Yeah.
What are some concrete actions school leaders can take?
So one powerful step is to conduct what's called a cultural wealth audit.
A cultural wealth audit.
Yeah.
What's that?
So this involves, identifying the different forms of capital present in your community
Yeah.
and brainstorming ways to integrate those into the school's culture and curriculum.
So going beyond demographics and really understanding
Exactly.
the lived experiences
Yeah.
of our students and families.
Precisely.
Okay.
It might involve, talking to families, conducting surveys, or even just observing, how students interact,
Right.
what they're passionate about.
And then using that knowledge to design
Exactly.
learning experiences that resonate.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
You might incorporate culturally relevant pedagogy, create opportunities for students to share their traditions, or even ensure, that the school's physical space reflects the community's diversity.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
It makes the learning environment so much more welcoming and engaging.
Right.
What else can we do to cultivate this community cultural wealth
Yeah.
in our schools?
Well, the Black Panther Party was all about building those genuine partnerships with families and communities.
We touched on this earlier.
Yeah.
But how can we make those partnerships
Right.
truly meaningful, not just token gestures?
It's about going beyond that superficial involvement.
Okay.
Create spaces where families feel valued and respected,
Yeah.
where their voices are heard
Right.
in decision-making processes.
So not just inviting parents to bake sales,
Right.
but actively seeking their input on curriculum or school policies?
Yes.
Okay.
Think about forming parent-teacher associations that are truly collaborative,
Mhm.
hosting community events at the school, consistently communicating with families about what's happening in the classroom.
I'm realizing this approach is a win-win.
Absolutely.
It strengthens relationships between the school and the community,
Mm-hmm.
and it provides students with a more holistic support system.
Absolutely.
Right.
When a child feels connected to their school community,
Mm.
when they know they have a network of adults who believe in them,
Right.
their chances of success increase dramatically.
This all sounds fantastic in theory,
Yeah.
but I imagine some school leaders might feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Where do they even begin to implement these changes?
It's It's understandable to feel overwhelmed,
Right.
but remember, you don't have to do it all at once.
Okay.
Start small, focus on 1 or 2 areas where you can make a difference.
So maybe start with a cultural wealth audit
Yeah.
or a community event.
Those are great starting points.
Okay.
And remember, professional development for teachers and staff is crucial.
Yeah, that's huge.
They need the knowledge and skills to work effectively with students from diverse backgrounds and to implement these new approaches.
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
It's about equipping our educators to be the best possible advocates for our students.
Exactly. Provide training on culturally responsive teaching practices, anti-bias curriculum development,
Right.
building relationships with families and communities.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing process, not just a one-time workshop.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. Who knew we could learn so much from the Black Panther Party about creating more equitable and empowering schools?
It's a testament to their vision
Right.
and commitment to community upliftment.
Mm-hmm.
They understood that education was a key to liberation,
Right.
and they were dedicated to providing their communities with the resources and support they needed to thrive.
Their legacy continues to inspire us
Absolutely.
to think differently about education, to challenge those deficit-based perspectives,
Yeah.
and to embrace the transformative power of community cultural wealth.
It's a challenge for all of us to continue their work,
Right.
to create schools that are truly inclusive and empowering, where every student has the opportunity to reach their full potential.
This has been an amazing conversation. Thank you for joining us on this journey.
Yes, thank you.
And to our listeners, we hope this deep dive has sparked some new ideas and inspired you to take action in your own schools and communities.
Remember, the work of creating more just and equitable schools is ongoing.
Right.
Let's all commit to embracing community cultural wealth
Yeah.
and creating learning environments where all students can thrive.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll be back next week with another fascinating topic.
Yes.
Until then, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep striving for a better world.